it kind of reminded me of some place you'd find like in Woodstock, New York. A bunch of hippies. I guess this is a big climbing area with the gorge and rocks and all. So it attracts a lot of climbers, hikers. It's all in the windy mountains, and I'll talk about them in a little while. So a lot of motorcycles. At Miguel's, you can also set up a tent and camp there. It was kind of neat. It seemed like a bunch of hippies and stuff like that. So, anyway, we ordered a pizza. It was okay. It was good. There's not much you can do to a pizza. It's crust and then whatever you put on top of it. So they had probably like 30 different toppings so you could create your own, which is what we did, and that made it neat. Now we're from New York and New Jersey, so we like a thinner, crispier crust. And this was not that. It was delicious, but the crust was a little chewy, and if you like that, go to Miguel's. What we did, we ate half a pie. We took the other half back to the rig, and the next day we cooked up the leftovers. We grilled it on the grill, on our Weber grill, and that made it really, really good. So from there, we went over to Gorge Outfitters. We got into a conversation with the owner and a daughter who gave us great tips on numerous trails and parks to see in the area. Stop in and visit them if you're in that area. Gorge Outfitters. Wonderful. I'll put a link to their website in the show notes for you. So the next day, we hiked the Auxier Ridge Trail, and I'll spell it Auxier. The woman serving us at Miguel's suggested this place to us, or this hike to us, and I'm really glad. I wish I'd caught her name. She was from New York, or New Jersey rather, northern Jersey. She had hiked the Gunks, so if you're a climber, I'm sure you know the Gunks. It's like the premier rock climbing, from what I understand, east of the Mississippi. It's near New Paltz, New York. If you're into hiking, go to the Shawangunk New York State Park, the Shawangunk State Park. That's where the Gunks get their nickname, from Shawangunk. So the woman serving us at Miguel suggested this, and what a great hike. Thank you. If you're listening to this and you're not, because you don't probably know about the podcast, hi. Reach out and say hi. RelaxRV at hotmail.com. I updated my website on the contact me page, and I added my cell phone number. So I'll give it to you now. If you want to shoot a text or just say hi, 845-642-3052. So the next morning, after doing the Auxier Ridge Trail, we did the Ridge Trail, then we took other trails to different arches, and it brought us to I think about 8 miles or a 9-mile hike. Beautiful. So when we got back to the rig, we decided we should stay in this park for an extra night. So we had a campground reserved in advance. So we canceled one of those nights to give us an extra night here. We're so glad we did that. We've only done it once before, and that was in Wyoming. And to see some red rocks, this park, I forget the name of it. So that's why we star things and heart things on Google Maps, because I can't remember nothing. So we stayed an extra day. We took a ride over to the Nada Tunnel. So Nada, N-A-D-A, in Spanish means nothing, right? Nada. So we thought it was a tunnel leading to nowhere. Not true. Nada is the family name in the area. That's where it got its name. It's an old railroad tunnel. It was hand carved way back when, and now it's a single lane tunnel that goes, I don't know, like 800 feet below the surface of the mountain above it. There's a road that actually takes you over the top too, but again, you're 800 feet up or 600 feet, whatever it is. So you can't see it from up top, nor can you see the top from the bottom. But it was really cool to see the tunnel and to drive through it. Pretty neat. So from there, well, I'll put a link to the Nada Tunnel in the show notes. We had seen an article probably like 2 years ago, or a photograph of the Nada Tunnel, and that's when we saved it with a gold star on our Google Maps, and it's been sitting there waiting for us. Thanks for your patience, Nada Tunnel. So I'll put a link to our pictures going through and of the Nada Tunnel. I posted them on Instagram. They're on my Instagram page, RelaxRV Podcast, and there's a link to that album on Instagram in the show notes. So while spending time here, we learned that this area has the second highest number of arches in the U.S. Now, of course, the number one area is Arches National Park. This is number 2. So after hitting the tunnel, not kind of like Wile E. Coyote, he would actually hit the tunnel that the Roadrunner would paint on the side of a rock. We didn't actually hit the tunnel, we just hit the tunnel. We then drove over to another trail that we did. We ended up seeing a bunch of little trails that took you either to viewpoints or to some arches. So we saw the Twin Arch, and then from there we just visited a bunch of these smaller hikes. Some of them were half a mile from the car, some of them were a mile from the car. So after doing that big hike the day before, we just wanted some short, easy hikes, give our legs a rest. So that's what we did. So I have pictures of this park on Instagram, and I'll put a link to the show notes, to those pictures in the show notes also. From there, we're going over to the Kanawha State Park in Kentucky, and I'll spell it. It's Kanawha State Park. Now, we had booked this campground probably like 2 months ago, and the site was rated to fit a 37-foot rig. We're 30 feet, so we said, no problem. Now, luckily, Trish was looking online, and people were saying you cannot get a motorhome up to Kanawha State Park in Kentucky. The road to the park is impassable with a motorhome. And we would read, or we sat there and read, numerous accounts of people having to stop, unhook, turn around, or back down, or get towed. So we said, Remember, stress management, folks, right? Best way to manage your stress? Avoid it. So we we canceled that reservation, and so we just needed the one night, and we had saved in our Google Maps the roadside park, Port of St. Albans, and I have the phone number and a link to it on Google Maps. So they offer 3 sites. I believe you can do 2 nights max, or is it 3 nights max? They have a dump. They have 30 amp. They might have had 50. I didn't look. It's free. We were like, well, there's where we're going. So we had booked the 2 nights at Kanawha. We stayed an extra night in Red Rock, or Red River Gorge rather. So we just needed the 1 night. So that's where we went. So with all that being said, watching the sunset over the river, because it's a river park, you're right on the river. Beautiful sunset. The downfall. You're on this super busy highway. There's a lot of mining in the area. We had trucks rolling by the RV probably 20 feet away from us all night long. Trains all night long. Cars racing up and down the road all night long. It was the noisiest night's sleep I've had probably ever, except for maybe when I was in the National Guard on a mortar squad doing, night firing at 2 o'clock in the morning and falling asleep and using the base of the mortar tube as my pillow and sleeping right through it. I don't sleep like that anymore. So here in Roadside Park, Port of St. Albans, I had my earplugs in, and I'll tell you what, it was awful. We'll never go back there. What a shame. But that's us, and you are you. So we got up the next morning. We drove over to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. By the way, St. Albans, the Port of St. Albans, is in West Virginia. So we took a ride over to Point Pleasant, and this is where Mothman came to visit back in the 60s, 1967. People in town kept saying that they were being visited by this winged creature called Mothman. Kind of like, if you never heard of them, on the line of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Loch Ness Monster. But it seems like Mothman was hovering around this bridge and scaring people. And it was the Silver Bridge. And it turns out that the bridge collapsed shortly after that. So people say that perhaps Mothman was warning people to stay away from the bridge, trying to scare them away from it. So we wanted to see that. It's where the movie, excuse me, where the movie Mothman Prophecies was based on. It was filmed in Pennsylvania, but based here. There is a museum dedicated to Mothman. So, took some pictures of the town, the museum, posted them on Instagram. I'll put a link to the pics there. Something to see, right? So, after that, we drove back to the rig. We dumped at the free dump. We drove about an hour and a half across Route 60, which I did not like. So, Route 90 across the top of Tennessee, I did not like. It's all up and down, like anywhere from 10 to 15% grade. So, if you're not going up a hill, you're going down a hill. In our V10 gasser, a lot of these hills were done in second gear or even first gear, getting up them and holding us back going down these hills. I kept an eye on the transmission temperature